They called it a routine sweep, just another slow crawl across the North African desert during the long middle years of World War II. But the men of the patrol would later write, in a terse line buried inside a declassified memorandum, that nothing about that day felt routine. The air was too still, the sand was too quiet, the horizon carried a strange distortion, as if something enormous was hiding behind the heat. What they found out there was not marked on any British, American, or Commonwealth map. And yet it was built with precision, guarded with discipline, and supplied with enough fuel and materiel to support a small campaign. In a war defined by mass movements of men and machines, the idea that an entire base could exist unnoticed, unregistered in the middle of the Sahara was beyond improbable. It was dangerous. The patrol moved at a crawl, the sun beating against the metal frames of their vehicles, each mile adding weight to the growing suspicion that they were crossing into something they were never meant to see. Sandstorms flickered on the horizon, rising and collapsing like mirages, but the shapes the scouts spotted ahead did not move with the wind. They held their form. They cast shadows. As they advanced, binoculars revealed the impossible. Angular structures half buried in dunes, corrugated roofs reinforced with camouflage netting, and faint lines of tracks leading in and out, too many to belong to a temporary camp. This was an installation designed to be permanent, or at least long-term, and someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to make sure it remained invisible. During the Western Desert Campaign, both the Allies and Axis forces relied heavily on intelligence, intercepted communications, aerial reconnaissance, captured documents. Yet this desert stronghold had slipped past every layer of detection. It did not appear in Luftwaffe logistics reports nor in any captured Afrika Korps supply manifests. Its existence contradicted the careful, methodical order of German military planning. The patrol stopped behind a ridge, watching the hidden base from the cover of sand and silence. They recorded what they saw. Camouflaged hangars, supply depots built into natural rock fissures, armored trucks parked in shallow pits to mask their silhouettes from the sky. At the center of the compound, men moved with purpose, armed guards pacing the perimeter, mechanics working in a repair yard, fuel drums stacked in orderly rows. Nothing felt improvised. This was not a forgotten outpost. It was a functioning node of a larger concealed network. When the patrol attempted to slip away, the quiet cracked. A guard rotation shifted. A vehicle engine roared to life. Within minutes, enemy trucks began to fan out across the dunes. The patrol had been seen. Their escape spiraled into a desperate chase. Engines straining, tires clawing through soft sand, machine gun fire stitching the ground behind them. A small exchange of fire erupted when the pursuers closed distance, a brief, violent reminder of how quickly the desert could turn from silent to fatal. The patrol managed to escape only because the terrain favored lighter vehicles. The heavier enemy transports bogged down in soft patches. Hours later, covered in sand and exhaustion, the patrol returned to their command post with a report that provoked disbelief, then shock. Commanders compared maps, intelligence summaries, and aerial surveys. Nothing accounted for the base. Nothing explained its size, its supply volume, or its strategic position near several contested supply routes. It was as though the installation had materialized out of thin air. But the desert does not lie. Evidence was mounting that the Axis war machine had constructed something unseen, something that allowed them to operate beyond the reach of Allied reconnaissance, slipping convoys, fuel, and equipment through the cracks of perception. And in a war where supply dictated survival, one hidden base could tip an entire front. In the hours that followed the report, the tent that served as the command center transformed into a storm of voices, maps, and intelligence cables. Officers traced lines across the desert with trembling fingers, recalculating everything they thought they understood about Axis logistics in North Africa. The Second World War had already proven that supply lines, not raw force, decided battles. If the enemy had carved out a hidden node in the Sahara, feeding Rommel's armored thrusts without ever appearing on reconnaissance photographs, then the entire Allied predictive model was flawed. Orders moved fast. Aerial reconnaissance squadrons were dispatched, their pilots instructed to sweep the region from extreme altitude to avoid detection. At first, nothing appeared. The sand concealed as much as it revealed, and the installation's designers had employed an uncanny understanding of light and terrain. Only after multiple passes, each from a different vector, did shadows begin to betray the presence of something geometric beneath the dunes. Straight lines where nature drew none, patterns that hinted at buried fuel stores and faint vehicle tracks converging like veins toward a hidden heart. The discovery ignited alarm at higher headquarters. An unregistered desert base implied more than secrecy. It suggested intent, a bypass route, a staging ground, a shadow supply chain running parallel to the known Africa Corps infrastructure. In the broader context of World War II, where every gallon of fuel and crate of ammunition shaped the tempo of an army, such a secret outpost could extend operational reach far beyond Allied estimates. The first objective became clear: sever whatever arteries fed this ghost installation. Under cover of darkness, units specializing in desert operations, veterans of long-range reconnaissance, executed a targeted disruption campaign. They hit supply lines above and below the mystery point, forcing convoys to reroute. Fuel drops vanished in the night. Water depots were quietly disabled. Every action was calibrated to stress a system whose full shape remained unknown. Within weeks, the base began to show signs of strain. Aerial photographs captured abandoned positions on the outskirts. Patrols reported fewer guards. Sand reclaimed the edges of the hangars as maintenance routines faltered. Whoever had built the place had not prepared for sustained pressure on its lifelines. Then one morning, a reconnaissance flight spotted something different. Emptiness. No vehicles, no figures, no movement. Only the skeletal geometry of structures partially filled with drifting dunes. The enemy had withdrawn. The patrol that first encountered the base returned to the site, this time cautiously, weapons ready. What they found was eerie in its silence. Tools were left on workbenches. Papers buried in sand still bore German administrative markings. Fuel drums lay split open, their contents drained or taken. It was as if a fully functioning node of the war had simply evaporated. Yet the evidence remained. Foundations, slit trenches, maintenance pits, storage alcoves carved into rocky escarpments. Someone had invested enormous effort into building this installation and then abandoned it in haste the moment secrecy collapsed. In its final form, the base became a case study in intelligence failure and adaptation. Allied analysts pored over the recovered documents, piecing together hints that the outpost had been intended as a bridging point for rapid desert movements, a logistical ghost lane parallel to official supply routes. If it had remained hidden for a few months longer, it could have shaped the later phases of the North African campaign, extending the endurance of armored units already stretched thin. What stands out, even now in declassified summaries of the Second World War, is the scale of the oversight. In a conflict defined by exhaustive surveillance, code-breaking breakthroughs like Ultra, and a constant battle for information dominance, the idea that an entire desert base existed outside the map underscores how war breeds blind spots. Terrain, weather, and simple human assumption can obscure truths as effectively as deliberate deception. The final memo, filed months after the discovery, recounts the patrol's original encounter in minimal, almost clinical language. A quiet acknowledgement that a few men driving across an ocean of sand had stumbled upon a secret capable of shifting outcomes. A reminder that World War II was shaped not only by grand offensives and famous battles, but also by the silent spaces between them, by the unknowns hiding just beyond the horizon. And as historians revisit the deserts of the North African front, the Ghost Base remains a testament to how much of the war's machinery operated in shadows. Its abandoned structures, swallowed again by the sands, leave behind a single enduring truth. Even in a conflict as vast as WWII, the smallest discovery, made by a single patrol, can rewrite the map.